Namaskar, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Teena Jha, you're watching Perspective. On International Women's Day this year, President Ramnath Kovind conferred the Nari Shakti Puraskar on 29 women in recognition of their exceptional work towards the empowerment of women, especially the vulnerable and marginalized. The recipients are from diverse fields such as entrepreneurship, agriculture, innovation, social work, education and literature, linguistics, arts and crafts, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, disability rights, also merchant navy and wildlife conservation. Two of these award-winning personalities who are catalysts of positive change in society are today joining us on the program today. So without any delay, let me introduce them to you. It is my immense pleasure to welcome on Sansad TV today Professor Sathupati Prasanna Sree from Visakhapatnam. She's been honored with the Nari Shakti Puraskar for her exceptional contribution in preserving minority tribal languages. And Professor Sree has evolved alphabets for 19 tribal languages so far. She's the first Asian and Indian to be included in the Atlas of Endangered Alphabets. Welcome to Sansad TV, ma'am. And besides her, we are also joined on the program today by Miss Tiffany Brar. She is joining us from Thiruvananthapuram. She's a social activist and entrepreneur. She's been awarded the Nari Shakti Puraskar for her exemplary work for visually impaired rural women. She's the founder of Jyotirgamaya Foundation that works for empowering the visually challenged, especially the women. And she's also the first Indian to receive the Holman Prize, which is given to individuals who shape their future instead of it being laid out for them. Ms. Tiffany, welcome to Sansad TV. It's indeed a pleasure having you both on the program. So before we begin talking about how your journey has been, let me first congratulate the two of you for winning the Nari Shakti Puraskar and being conferred with the prize by the President himself. Professor Prasanna Sree, let me now come to you and understand more about your endeavor. What prompted you to work towards preserving the tribal languages?
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. See, I'm myself, I'm a tribe. I have, over the period of years where I was doing my intermediate, I was able to understand that I'm a tribe and I have a clan that is not being educated. And I'm the first woman from the entire South Indian universities to be a professor of English right now. So also, there were many people from my group and from my herd rather, they were not educated and basics of education was not given to them. You know, constant humiliation and subjugation and, you know, consistently they were subjugated and oppressed by different kinds of people for different reasons. And the only reason that I found out is that they lack education. If one is educated in the family, the whole family is educated. That is what we hear about. So my tribal group, they are the people, even fundamentals of education has not reached them, even after many years of Indian independence. So I thought the best thing that I can do for my group is I can prepare some alphabets, which was a journey that I haven't planned at all. But over a period of time, initially my journey was to collect their songs, proverbs, and folklore. But over a period of time, having had stayed with them for a long period, then I realized that it is not that we collect their folklore and proverbs and all sort of things, their oral literature. But the part is one has to empower these women and they have to give them something else. And then I realized that education is the fundamental point. So initially my journey was to make them understand that they have to be educated. But over a period of time, I realized that they don't have script for their languages that are being spoken orally. So I decided that we can do something like this. And then after 32 years, today I'm able to help them with 90 different types of tribal languages. And it is reaching around millions of people. Whosoever is a tribe, if he is coming under these 90 tribes, alphabets, automatically they have a script for themselves as well.
Absolutely. Education is the first and the foremost step towards empowerment. And rightly so, Professor Sree is helping rural women, particularly the tribal women, towards this journey of empowerment. How difficult this journey has been, of course, I'm sure over the last 3 decades, you must have faced your share of challenges. How you dealt with them is something that I'll come back to you and understand. But for the moment, let me go across to Ms. Tiffany Brar and also help our viewers and us understand how, her journey has been. Tiffany, in fact, I was reading about you, and in one of the interviews, you had spoken about your childhood. As a child, you said that, you came across the experience of always hearing words like no running, no crossing the street, no climbing up the tree. So basically, a life that was typical of a visually impaired person in an environment where one would expect, and in fact, for the visually impaired, the life is seen as being dependent. How did you find your independent self?
It took a lot of time. It was a very big challenge because at the first the outset, even though my parents, Lieutenant General TPS Brar, who is now retired, and my late mother, Leslie Brar, were very educated, were very determined to empower me and everything, but they always were overprotective, like, oh, don't do this, don't do that. And they thought that they were like really, really loving me by being overprotective. And this I could not understand in my childhood. And even my friends in class were very overprotective. And in fact, the first turning point I got was when the teacher accused me of giving the right answer in the class and making my classmate give the wrong answer. And this was a very, very big turning point in my life because I had been thrown out of the class that day because of my disability. Another turning point was that when I always heard the words, you can't play, you can't run, you can't cross the road, just like you rightly asked. And then when I got a job, when I started working, I started working at this international organization called Braille Without Borders, run by a German blind lady called Sree. And I met many blind people from other countries besides her who were living quite normal lives and who were traveling from Europe to India, from Japan, from Thailand, from the Philippines, from everywhere. And I said, okay. And then I started reading the autobiography of Ved Mehta and many other illustrious blind people. And I decided, okay, I must try. And then I convinced my parents, and my mother, of course, she is no more. She died when I was 12. And I convinced my father and my mentor, who's my adopted mother, Vinita, who came with me for the award, who's been our house helper and caretaker for many, many years now. So she's like a mother to me. So I convinced her and my father and my other well-wishers that, I have to work and I have to go by bus. And they were very much against it, that, no, you can't. I mean, you'll fall down or you'll get lost or something will happen or someone will tell you this is the bus stop and take you somewhere else. Well, I said, well, if that is what has to happen, well, so be it. I will learn and I will find my way. And I took my white cane and I started traveling alone. I started working. I started going to the bank. I started depositing money. I started withdrawing money. I started booking tickets, railway tickets, and then air tickets. And then, going for small errands. I started going for field trips to other blind organizations, to other village areas. And then I realized that, there are other blind people who are less fortunate than me, who don't have educated parents and who are subjected to even more overprotection, even domestic violence, even people are tying them up or people are just confining them to one room. And I must empower them. And then, of course, I learned how to use a computer. I learned how to use a phone. I learned how to use a white cane. And then I wanted to empower others like me. So I studied special education from Ramakrishna Mission, Coimbatore. I got trained in mobility by the National Association for the Blind. And then, of course, I worked some more at Brave Without Borders. And then I started the Mobile Blind School. And I used to travel to the houses of blind people, bringing them out. And I brought quite a few people out of their comfort zones. 27-year-old Vinod, who had not at all come out of the house, he came out. And that's how my journey began.
Absolutely. Quite an inspiring journey, and, something that's today made you one of the most powerful women with a vision. I'll come back and understand on the various, kind of works that you are now doing to empower the rural women. What does your foundation, the Jyotirgamay Foundation, do and things like that. But going back to Professor Prasanna Sree and trying to understand the challenges that she has faced in her over 3-decade-old journey. Professor, what's intriguing about your journey is that, you are working with a group which is a very closed community. Mixing with tribes is not an easy task. In fact, when I read about you, in one of the articles also mentioned how for the first time you were actually, when you went, you were also beaten up, you had to be taken to the hospital. What then made you go back and work with them and gain the acceptance of not just one community, but various tribal communities over the decades?
It's something like that, when there is a pain that is internally so overwhelming that, you have to push yourself through this challenge, right? Because being educated, and I'm the first person in my community to be educated from English media. And then the challenges that I have to face was very, 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 I think there were many more. And then one of them, as you said, it was right. Then initially, I'm not talking about my group because they have seen me growing, but I'm talking about those groups though they are primitive tribes, that is called, they are called, they stay in a group like primitive groups. They don't even allow anybody. And, it took me many years to talk to them, at least to smile, take their smile. It took me many years. And then over a period, when I started talking to them, language was a problem because now I can speak 22 languages, but initially to learn their language, to understand that was very difficult. It was the first gesture language, signs language, and then slowly when they are able to understand that I'm here to help them, I'm their friend, then they allowed me. And then, as you know, not one challenge, because a woman is traveling into the forest area, and I was retreating back to my I was retracing my footprints from where my ancestors have come. And then they initially, these tribal groups, I tell you, they are not just tribal groups. They are being protected by other elements also. And one of them was, he was not in a position to accept me because when initially I was traveling, I was with my sari or with my paisama or with my jeans or something else, but they were not able to take that. And so he thought that I'm an intruder. Yes. And I'm coming there to exploit their resources or some kind of things, because already many women were exploited and many men have been subjugated. Men were subjugated, please understand. And they were subject to different kinds of oppression, either by the police or by the antisocial elements or by different kinds of groups. So they were so scared to talk to me. But when they started getting into, I started moving along with them to the field area and started doing harvesting with them, started walking with them towards the shanties, and, started doing all possible works that these women are doing. And then there was a kind of, slowly people started, making me comfortable, or I was making them comfortable, understanding that I am their friend. And so, and when they realized that I am their friend, it was very easy for me. And this journey of moving inside them, it took me many years. And then when I started getting into them, I was able to understand their language. And when I started understanding their language, because already I was able to, because my father was in railways, I was able to speak Hindi, Marathi, Bengali, and all these languages. Mm-hmm. And so it was easy for me to communicate with them. And then, because being a linguist, as I teach in the university, it was easier for me to understand what is that they are speaking. And so I think it wasn't, in that particular part, it was not so difficult. But as a woman venturing into the areas which are still, uninhabitable for common people, even like us, it is very, very difficult to get into them.
Absolutely. In fact, I was about to ask you that, obviously mixing with tribes, making them feel comfortable is in itself a very, very challenging and difficult task, because they see every other individual who is not part of their community as outsiders, as intruders, as you said. As a woman, was it even more challenging? Did it add up to your arduous journey that you've had over the decades?
It was truly a very challenging point, because anywhere we haven't grown to that stage that a man looks at a woman because she's another human being. It is not like that. Always, whether it is a tribal man or a modern man, whosoever it is, still the stigma that woman is always identified as a sexual object is still prevalent. And then initially, those people who used to be very friendly to me, when under the shade of intoxication or drink or something else, they used to misbehave. They try to do it, but I was able to manage myself, and I used to, I used to tell them, this is not the way, and if you further do things like this, nobody will be able to help you, because I'm here to help you. I'm like a mother to you, or like a sister to you. And I started talking to them in such a nice way, and used to tell them, what you're trying to do on me is not good.
Certainly.
Luckily,
So
they listen to what
despite
I'm
these
saying.
challenges, how you kept yourself going, how you convinced your family to do so. I'll come back and understand. Let me also ask about the hurdles that Miss Tiffany Brar has faced, because I've met a lot of people who have found the will or inspiration to create their own path, but alongside also pull others who need empowerment. Ms. Brar is something that's commendable, and which of course puts you, makes you unique, and for that you've been recognized not just in India but also globally. But tell us more about the Jyotirgamay Foundation. How difficult is it to convince people to be part of your journey in empowerment?
Jyotirgamay Foundation works to empower visually impaired people in all spheres of life. We train blind people in orientation mobility, how to use the white cane and to walk by themselves, to board public transport, to do shopping by themselves, to use a smartphone, to use banking applications, to use travel related applications, now even food ordering applications, to use a smartphone just the way sighted people use it, to use social media like Facebook and WhatsApp and LinkedIn, and of course Instagram is not so accessible because it's a lot of pictures involved and a lot of visuals, but blind people can use everything just as the sighted person does. Like now I'm on Zoom, I'm connected with you all on Zoom. I can use Teams, I can use Google Meet, I can use the WebEx platform. So the same thing, we empower our students through the use of screen readers. And it's very difficult to convince parents. It's very difficult to convince other blind organizations who also are doing a very good job, but it's very difficult to convince them that we are also doing this and please join hands with us, because most of them are government based, most of them have been there for many years, and they are much older than me, and I'm just a bacha in front of them. So there are many other organizations who are my teachers or my mentors or my ex-teachers, and they say, okay, you're doing this, but I've been doing this for years, I know more than you. And it's very hard, it's very challenging also to convince parents, because normally parents say, oh, you can do it, but my child is blind. So now, what I do is I travel alone to the houses whenever I can. Of course, not during this pandemic. We've not been able to do much outreach, but we were still able to distribute food kits to many blind people and to help them in their houses. But it was very challenging even during the pandemic, because we have to touch a lot of things and there was a lot of social distancing. So convincing parents, convincing government authorities, convincing our direct competitor organizations is very hard. But we are still trying.
Absolutely. I think mainstreaming disability is the biggest challenge ahead of, activists like you who are doing exemplary work, not just for yourself, but for hundreds and thousands of other people who are visually impaired. How has the pandemic proven to be a setback? For worldwide, we've seen it's had adverse impact, but especially for the visually impaired, for whom a lot of it, in fact, depends on touch. And with the pandemic imposing social restrictions, physical distancing, physical restrictions to say, what kind of setback did the pandemic have on your organization, or the kind of work that you're doing?
Well, it did have a lot of setback. First of all, we had to close down all our operations. We had to start. At first, we didn't know what to do. The first lockdown, we just didn't know what to do. And then slowly, when we saw other organizations across the nation, across the globe, adapting to online technology, we also had to go online like never before. And it was very hard for our students to, access Zoom and Google Meet and, access Telegram channels where we used to record the notes and give it to them. And also we had to install another software called Remote NVDA, where we could access their computers also. It's like a team viewer software, but it's used in NVDA. NVDA is non-visual desktop access, the screen reader used by visually impaired people. And so we were able to access some people's computers, but it was very challenging because of noises from inside the house, some people not allowing their children to study, kitchen work going on, construction work going on in some houses, no connectivity or low connectivity, even the lack of concentration on the side of the youths who we were teaching. So it was a very big challenge. Sometimes they would turn up, sometimes they would not join. And sometimes we would have some external speakers, so that would not work. Also, traveling was a big challenge in the sense that we could not access public public help. Like we were so used to asking anyone to help us cross the road. Just showing our white cane itself, somebody would come running and saying, "Do you want to cross the road?" And we would. But in the pandemic time, everyone was, either wearing gloves or not being helpful. So I would actually sanitize my hands in front of them and say, I'm sanitizing my hands are clean, please help me. And there were many other blind people. In fact, there was a blind couple who I heard of in Mumbai who were not allowed to even touch the lift buttons in their apartment building. Even we were also forbidden. I was forbidden to touch the lift buttons. But then afterwards, when they realized, of course, that I was touching only one or two buttons, one 0 floor and 110, the floor where I stay, I said, I'm sanitizing my hands before I press the button. So it was very, very difficult. Also, we lost connectivity with a lot of people. It damaged our mental health. Also, the applications related to COVID were not at all friendly, were not at all accessible because they were not following the WCAG web content accessibility guidelines. Like the Arogya Setu app, a blind person cannot access this app. Also the Jagrata portal, where we had to make out passes for people to go to another state or another district. Those passes were also very difficult to access. Only the Owen platform, the vaccination website, that was accessible. It was, but again, for booking the slot was not at all accessible, but for downloading the vaccination certificate, I was able to download my vaccination certificate without anybody's help. But again, linking the passport, registering for vaccinations, all these kind of things were not
Certainly. So, but even though, you tackled these challenges quite well over the past 2 decades, I think Professor Prasanna, Sree, what Tiffany was saying, and it relates for all other fields, is convincing yourself, because it satisfies you, is easier than convincing family members, and rightly so, because they're worried about the safety, the security of individuals. And you've spoken about the kind of challenges that you had to face, and also because as a woman, there were a whole lot of different challenges that you faced from the very people for whose betterment you were working for. How difficult was it to convince your near and dear ones, and who has been the constant support in your journey throughout?
It was something like that. Whenever there was an article about my work in the newspaper, my seniors in the villages, they used to talk to my father and they say, "Arey, what is that your daughter is doing? She's just going and she's behaving like a man. And then what is that? She's married and she's supposed to be taking care of the household, and she's a professor in the university. What the hell is that she's doing in the tribal areas, moving around? There are animals, there are men, there are different kinds of issues." But my father used to smile at them and he used to say, "Prasanna is very strong. She knows how to make herself." So besides this, I have a lovely husband who is always, he used to say, every human being has a life which is short-lived. And in this short-lived life, you have to make a document, you have to make a page for yourself in this world. Even when you are gone away, when you leave this world, your people should read you, he used to say. And I have taken that as a issue. And then when I started moving into, he used to take care of my little girl. My daughter was very small and she was an infant rather. And then he used to take care of her, and he sacrificed his whole career because of me venturing into tribal areas. And whenever there was problems, problems was when I was entering into tribal areas or into forest, the main problem was not with animals, but with men in the form of animals. They had all kinds of possibilities of attacking me. Besides this, if they are uncivilized or not educated, they are doing it. But how about the world where I'm working, where I'm seeing? Absolutely. There are many people who used to say, "What is this? You are a professor and you have a lot of money and then you sit at home. Why are you getting into these areas?" And then you never used to permit me to get into the idea that I wanted to get in. And then people used to say, "Here comes the lady who is retracing herself into tribal areas. This is all government's job, and this is everything that they have to do. Why are you taking up this headache, and why are you getting into all this?"
But it's
And
commendable that despite all of these hurdles that both of you have faced, you have come out stronger. You've written your own rules, scripted your own, success stories. Of course, today you are inspiring several others who look up to you, that in the face of adversity, how you come out stronger. Tiffany, I'll close the show with one final comment from you on how, because of course, a lot of people are looking up to you, our viewers who are watching our program, on how to motivate yourself, how to keep yourself going in the face of adversity.
Well, I would say, how would you motivate yourself? By your inner voice, which says, don't give up. Try as much as you can, not to satisfy others, but to actually just now, as Professor Prasanna Madam had just said, I really love ma'am's lines, ma'am's husband's lines rather. We should document ourselves and people should read us. Exactly. At least we should read ourselves. Even if people don't read us, at least we are able to read ourselves that we have done something. We were here. We made some mark. We changed a few people's life. If we can't change the whole world, at least we can change a few. And those few will remember us. And that's enough to keep us going for a lifetime. So don't give up. Keep that fire bubbling.
Absolutely. And with your constant efforts over these years, you have become catalysts of change in today's society, empowering a lot of women who are watching you today, including me.
One more thing to add.
Yes, please.
Yes, I would like to make a few changes in our country, and I'm sure this is Parliament TV, and there'll be many government officials who are going to be watching this. I would like our country to be inclusive, to be accessible, for the roads to have no potholes, for the roads to be free, for people with visual impairment to walk without being scared, for the currencies to have proper distinct symbols for visually impaired people to identify, so that people don't trick us, so that we don't give 2,000 rupees instead of giving 500 rupees.
Absolutely. Very important point. Professor Sree, I would also like one final comment from you. Tiffany spoke about making our society inclusive. Of course, that is very, very important if you want to have an equal society. We all dream of having an equal society, but how achievable is it for that one thing that you want India to change?
It is like, unless and until whatever work we are doing, giving away our time and breathe and life and everything, policy makers are politicians, and they have to make it as a policy that they have to include all these works that we are doing. And in order to make people be available with all these sort of things, in order to empower them, whatever work we are doing, let it be implemented in the form of policy, so that remote areas, tribals, they can really be educated in their mother tongue first. And thanks to Modi government, Sir has been so kind with including by giving us new education policy 2020, where it has really lessened my burden. Because for the last 18 years, I'm struggling with the government, asking them every nook and corner. I'm asking them, meeting politicians, requesting them, making them at least education should be at least in the primary area. It should be in the mother tongue medium.
Of course, so some initiatives have been taken, but of course it's a long way to go to make our society very, very inclusive. Efforts are on, but I think all stakeholders will have to make their contributions. That having been said, I'll have to wind up the program today. It's been really an honor to have both of you on the program today. You continue to inspire a lot of youngsters who are watching you on the program, including me, and it's my privilege to listen to your stories of success with the kind of efforts that you have put in to not just empower yourself, but also working towards the betterment of others. So thank you very much for joining us on Sansad TV on our program today and sharing your story with us. It's been an honor having you on the show. So that's it from us on this edition of Perspective today. Thanks very much to all our viewers as well for their time.